Cheers.
Cheers. Welcome to Amelia Baptist Podcast, where we discuss church life, theological questions, and cultural influences. Our podcasts are available via Google, Spotify, Apple, and many other podcast platforms. We hope you subscribe and enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to Amelia Baptist Roundtable. We're episode 9 here. I can't believe we're already into episode 9.
Episode 9.
Yeah, so we're Clay and I are here filling in for Adam and Pastor Neil today.
That's right.
And we actually want to talk about something that we're passionate about, and that is film and current culture, Christian culture especially. But before we get into that, we're so glad that you join us for these episodes. You can find them on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify,
Apple Podcasts.
Apple
Anywhere
Podcasts,
anywhere you get podcasts, you can find this podcast.
So like, subscribe, share it with your friends. The more that we like and subscribe to this, the more we can get these podcasts out to people who are searching for content,
right.
And need to hear the gospel and culturally relevant topics here.
Yep.
So diving right into media, film, media. We live in a culture today that is immersed in media. And I think with the pandemic that happened last year and where we are currently, a lot of people were at home for a long time, and media became even more important. I know we heard, Clay, about people, and I'm sure we experienced it ourselves, being at home, watching, total shows in a couple days, like multiple episode shows,
like 23 episodes, like my obsession with The Office.
Right.
I've seen The Office probably 40 times over. There's 9 seasons, and there's like 23 episodes in each season, and I watch it in like 2 days. It's horrible. It's a terrible addiction.
Yeah. So, but well, I think we all have different things that we could say are terrible addictions there, right?
Right.
We're all growing, Clay. But no, but media,
as long as you pray for me,
right.
Yeah, that's right.
Media is important in our culture, especially to the generation that we're in.
Right.
But it's becoming more important with COVID and stuff to all generations. And we see streaming platforms like Amazon Prime and Netflix and all these other platforms that are streaming tons of content, right?
Absolutely.
And the question is, I think, what role does the Christian community, does the church, does believers have in media, in especially the film industry there? So that's one thing we want to talk about today here. Talking about a current cultural relevant film or series, actually. Most of you have heard or seen about The Chosen. That was started a project by Dallas Jenkins, and they're actually releasing episode 2 right now of season 2 this week. But backing up, it's a story about the life of Christ, but told from an interesting perspective. It's a multi-season series about the life of Christ. And just what was it like being a disciple of Jesus, living during the time Christ? What might have been like to walk with Christ, to live the life that the disciples did, to be a part of that culture? It's a
very raw and real experience that The Chosen is kind of portrayed with this season, this series.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching the first one here as we were setting up.
Right. We got it playing in the background.
So we have playing in the background here, but in watching the first one, we were laughing, talking about first 5 minutes. You already have demon possession, and you have the Roman soldiers there interacting with the townspeople. Nicodemus is already introduced. You get
introduced to like was it Peter?
Peter,
yeah, Peter.
Peter and Andrew,
right.
Out there just involved in daily life.
Right.
If you haven't seen The Chosen,
right,
check it out. It's super amazing.
And the cinematography in The Chosen is phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
But one of the neat things about The Chosen is it's the biggest crowdfunded project to date. They crowdfunded $10 million in order to make this series on the life of Christ. That was just season 1.
Right.
They're already in season 2 and have been crowdfunded there. So that leads us into, I guess, how has Christian culture been starting to influence film in the recent, we were adding up 20 years probably is really when it started. Right. I guess we could say, at least in my memory, it really started kind of with the Kendrick brothers. You know, the Christians had been involved here and there. A lot of them were kind of, in a way, not very well funded. They were poorly produced because of that, and not really good storylines. And then all of a sudden, the Kendrick brothers kind of just burst onto the national stage.
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, kind of out of nowhere. They produced their first one, which was Flywheel. Which
that was a $20,000 kind of production.
Yeah, $20,000. Their church backed them, supported them for that. Right. Produced the Flywheel. It was just for their community. They put, I think, in 1 or 2 theaters in their community, and it gained steam. And they ended up being popular. I guess enough for them to say, let's make another one.
People liked it enough for them to be like, okay, let's roll with this.
Yeah, it wasn't nationally known at that time there. No. And then their next one coming out in 2006, which was Facing the Giants.
Right.
And most people in the Christian circles have seen or heard of Facing the Giants at least.
It's a fairly popular
especially
one.
In the South where football's popular, and people love watching them some good football there. A great story. Facing the Giants came out in 2006, and in 2008, Fireproof. And then, of course, Courageous, right. And then War Room, and they've gone on since then. And then a couple years later, once we started getting,
was it 2010, somewhere around there?
Yeah, somewhere probably 2010.
It was in the 2010 spectrum.
Yeah. The Irwin brothers started also coming onto the national stage, making Christian content, Christian film. They made movies such as Mom's Night Out, I Can Only Imagine, which is the story of Bart Miller and the song he wrote, his story there. Right. And then most recently, I Still Believe, which is the story of Jeremy Camp and his wife and her battle with cancer there. Right. And just God's redemption in that. So that's kind of where we've seen the Christian film grow. And so we're at a period of time right now where Christians are starting to make quality film and in different genres that are being successful. And so I guess a lot of people might ask, well, okay, it's entertainment, right? Right. Really, how do we share the gospel within entertainment there? And I know this is something we've talked a lot about, Clay. So give me your thoughts on the Christian's role in entertainment here.
So the Christian's role in entertainment, in my eyes, is one, we're looking for excellence. So when you're in the filmmaking industry, and I would like to think that I'm in the filmmaking industry, you want to create something that people want to enjoy visually. So with the cinematography and the audio is not really visual, but whatever, you get the idea.
Audio visual, they're all kind of
audio visual. It's the experience. Yes. That's exactly right. So you always want a level of excellence within storytelling through the film, and a lot of that comes from the writers and the producers involved in that making of the film. A lot of differences I've seen in secular movies compared to Christian-made films or Christian directors or producers is the overall budget of the film. Mm-hmm. Like if you look at Fireproof from the Kendrick brothers, it was $500,000. If you look at Courageous, it was $2 million. And Courageous was a very well-made movie.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about how great we love Courageous. I mean,
I watched it like 100 times over when I was a child. I mean, it was one of my favorite movies growing up.
But I think sitting back and listening, we're gonna go $2 million. That's a ton of money.
It sounds like a lot of money. I promise it's not. I promise it's not. To give you an example, The Greatest Showman.
Popular.
Very popular. It was $84 million to produce that.
Man.
It grossed 84. No, it was
No, that was just the production cost.
That was just the production cost. Just the production cost. Aladdin, the live action Aladdin movie, was it 183 million?
Budgeted. Wow.
Budgeted 183 million for the production. One of my favorite movies is not really a Christian movie by any means. The Irishman by Martin Scorsese, $159 million. Insane amounts of money are thrown into these movies by Hollywood studios, bunch of different things. The thing that Christians don't have is production. Like they don't have the budget to make these huge, glorious blockbuster type movies.
So you're getting, because we're seeing Christians that have the experience, that have the know-how, the talent,
right?
That are coming up. You're in film school. There's other people who have done film school, have been directors, have been involved in major sets.
Go Knights. Sorry.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Have been involved in major sets, have been directors in Hollywood, and then became believers, have decided to be involved in Christian movies. But the budgeting is the film, the support has just been tough to come by. Right. And I think it's important that we understand that storytelling is so key. If we look at the history of society, one of the things that you've seen throughout history is the art of storytelling. From shepherds out in the field around the fire, telling stories, passing it down through generations to now in today's media, where we tell stories visually through film. And when we see Jesus, one of the main things he did was he told stories. As we look at the Gospels, there's so many parables that are told, that a story is told to make a point. Proverbs is full of parables, stories, where a point is being made, a value is being shared. Do this, don't do this. Why do we do this? Why don't we do this? Through story. And I think it's important to see that it grabs people's attention. It connects them on that emotional level. And I think Christians have a story to tell. We have the greatest story to tell, and we have so much.
I would say weight on our shoulders.
Yes, as we tell these stories, to do it with excellence, and to do it in a way that glorifies God. Right. So I guess that brings us into the church's involvement. How should the church? How should the community? The body of believers be involved in film and media currently nowadays. Right.
I watched it was a guy. I have a Christian filmmaker's Facebook page that I follow, and he did a live video on it, and he was like going crazy about every church should have a filmmaking department. We have a music department. we have the budget for making short films, making feature films, and I was like, heck yeah, man. That sounds great.
And I think, while that's an extreme on one end of every church having it.
I'm by no means saying every single church. There should be there's people who shouldn't make films.
I think
I'm not saying you can't.
Right.
But you
there's some of you watching you're okay, you probably shouldn't be making films. We each have different gifts and that God has given us. And for some that's filmmaking. And for some it's supporting those who are able to tell stories creatively.
Absolutely.
But I think what we're driving at and what we're seeing is that with the platform that we have to tell stories to people, believers and non-believers alike, this is a way of evangelism. This is a way of sharing the truth of God.
This is
the gospel
making
of Jesus
disciples.
Christ. Yeah.
Those disciples make disciples. Those disciples make films, which make disciples, and so on and so forth.
And it goes back to, I think I want to share, when we got into this, we said, well, let's make stories that speak to people that deal with heart issues that are not necessarily dealt with.
Right.
And so one was anger that we dealt with, Rage.
We dealt with Rage,
the Rage film that has 10,000 views now. It just blows my mind every time I think about it.
Well, it blows my mind because we went from absolutely us not knowing each other for one. And then from March last year to April this year, we've created 2 short films through our production company, Noble Sea Productions. We've created Greengrass, which had 8,000 views, and Rage, which had 10,000 views. And both of them tell stories that really, they show the struggle through
the Christian life. Yeah.
Yeah. Not even only Christian life, like people outside of the church, people in the church, we all struggle with these things. I know I had a couple people. I used to work at a restaurant called Salt Life Food Shack. I was a server, and I would go around and I would ask, like, hey guys, I'm making this film. You know, what things in your life give you this sense of rage that this would be portrayed in this film? And they all told me a lot of the stuff was exactly what we covered. I mean, it affects everyone.
It hit a nerve.
It does. Yeah.
And the thing I love though from that is, you know, we had the opportunity. We know of two people that we had the opportunity of sharing the gospel with directly, because they direct messaged us and said, man, I'm struggling with this, or I've experienced rage growing up. And we were able to say, that's not the end story.
Right.
There's redemption through Jesus Christ.
To me, that was my favorite part about it.
That's the best part of what we did.
It was so exciting to see people, like, one, relate to it, and then two, be able to have a conversation about it, and like we be able to share the gospel with them about the situation. Yeah.
So, you know, so it's an exciting time to live in, as media is becoming more and more important, as we're seeing basically films being made by Christians. And I think you and I are passionate about this because we see the need. We see these great stories that can be told.
We see the great stories, and we see the gap in the film industry that we need to fill and push.
We see it as our mission field, honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's an ability for us to be on mission for Christ using film and media, right. Which kind of puts us into our new project. We haven't really talked a lot about it.
We made like a single Facebook post that had a couple shares, but nothing like
so we want to dive into kind of our vision. As y'all know, we made 2 shorts, Green Grass and Rage, right. And then we got done with that. We started praying, okay, God, where are you taking us with this? And we really had a passion for telling stories that speak to current issues. And so we found this gem of a book called That Printer of Udell.
It's a classic.
It was written by Harold Bell Wright back in 1903. He was a pastor, and he wrote this to read a chapter every Sunday to his church. And it took the Christian community by firestorm at that point in time because it called out the hypocrisy in the church. What was happening is Mr. Wright saw that people were coming to his church and other churches. They were listening to the sermon on Sunday. They were hearing the teachings of Christ, right. And then they would go and live their life like nothing was different about the way they lived in the secular world there. And so he wrote a novel. It wasn't a documentary. It wasn't a preachy book, if you could say that. It was a novel that just told the stories of people and showed the hypocrisy of many believers at that point in time.
I was going to say it's saturated with the hypocrisy of the church and the time that it was in, and how the story kind of wraps around and weaves and wobbles. And
so he's a brilliant writer, and as we did that, it's a public domain book. It was one that we could create into a film. We said, this needs to be told. Right. And it's so incredibly relevant still today. In fact, a neat story about this book is Ronald Reagan. I love this part.
It's a cool story.
Ronald Reagan, at 11 years old, he read this book, and he came to his mom afterward and said, I want to become a Christian. He counts his salvation experience from this book. He was baptized, and as president of the United States, he wrote the daughter-in-law of Harold Bell Wright and said, your father-in-law's book had such an amazing impact on my life and my policies and how I govern and how I live the Christian life. So that's how impactful this was. Harold Bell Wright is an amazing writer. I mean, it's just impactful. As we started going into this book and seeing the storylines, the plot lines, there's murder, there's mystery, there's hypocrisy.
There is intrigue.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
And we said, there's no way that we can condense this to an hour and a half. So we are doing 3 full-length episodes,
count them, 3
of That Printer of Udell. We're opening up a fundraising drive, crowdfunding for people to support this. This is an opportunity for the church, for the Christian community to get behind a story that needs to be told, a film project here. It's expensive. I mean, we were talking beforehand, the amount of days of just film shooting for some of these major productions. People don't realize that. So for Rage, we spent 14 hours one day shooting Rage,
right?
Which ended up being like a 4 to 6 minute short clip.
Very short film.
But give us some statistics on some of these major films.
I don't have any statistics for anything else, but I saw The Irishman. I looked up, and since it's one of my favorite secular films, it was shot in 108 shooting days, and it had 295 like sets. Like you build it up and you break it down, and that's the set.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where you're seeing the cost of these productions.
That was 159 million.
That was 159 million.
For all of that.
But even Christian, the biggest that we saw on the ones we looked up before, I think was.
Now hold on, because I do have higher grossing. Have you watched Ben-Hur before?
Yes.
Ben-Hur. That was a.
Of course. Who hasn't? Clay, have you watched Ben-Hur?
Let me see. Hold on.
Tell me you've watched Ben-Hur.
I watched Ben-Hur. I watched it in theater. I watched it in theater. It was a great film. I love that film.
If you haven't seen Ben-Hur, shame on you.
It received 11 Academy Awards. Of course it was great.
They had I forget how many extras, thousands of extras lining the seats for the chariot race at the end. Totally classic. I'm
looking here. It said it grossed $611 million. That's just grossing. It made $74 million back, so it must have cost 500 something million. Yeah. To make it.
So I mean, recent stories we were looking at I Can Only Imagine, which was like a $7 million film.
Right.
I still believe $12 million budget for these. And so we're about to open a drive for that.
It's a campaign sort of speak.
Crowdfunding.
Yeah. Crowdfunding. That's what it is.
Anyway, we're about to open this up and looking to hopefully in the next 2 months by July raise the funds. Our goal is $50,000 for one episode.
Right.
$150 for all 3 episodes there.
Which there's not a cap on that, so if you want to go more than that, we can make a better film.
Yeah, so but that's going to be either personally donating to us. We're setting up our Noble Steed. We're incorporating it so that we have the legal backing for that. Yep. But or setting up as probably an LLC there.
Yeah, LLC for sure.
But within that, Christians can have a hands-on part of getting the message out of the gospel here through this film that Printer Review does. If you have questions, I mean, grab Clay or I. We're more than happy to talk about it. We're passionate about this.
We will talk our heads off to you. So just be careful.
And so I guess the timeline, let's talk about the timeline, what we're looking at. God's providing a crew for us from your film school there, which is amazing.
This is God opening doors and opening doors and opening doors. I had a group chat with a bunch of people that I was in a class with, and there was a filmmaking class, and I said, I was like, hey, me and my buddy are making this film. We need a crew. If anybody can spare some time, we would love to have you. And we had 15 to 20 people.
15 people so far, yeah.
Just say, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. So now we have a crew,
we have a production crew, and some of them are bringing equipment. But we do need to purchase equipment. We need to house and feed people on set there.
Right.
This is something we're passionate about. So there's just a lot of costs of it. The cost of housing, lodging, the equipment. I mean, we have to buy equipment for sound, for cameras. We know what we need.
Lighting equipment.
Getting a lighting equipment, finding location shoots.
Right.
And then there's the whole post-production. A lot of people don't think about that, but a lot goes into editing, the licensing of the music.
Right.
Then the promotion of this. I mean, we want to get this story out to as many people as we can.
The marketing side is going to be a big part of the budget.
We want people to hear the story because we want people to live out the teachings of Christ in a practical way as we have been called to.
Absolutely.
On that. Our goal is to start casting in July, and we'd love to have most of our funding by then. And then hopefully a shoot in the fall or the spring of next year with a tentative release date of next fall.
Right. Fall of 2022.
August or September of 2022 there.
Right.
So if you want to join in with this, check out, follow us on Noble Steed Productions or ask.
It's right here.
Yes. Ask Adam Adam's been totally supportive of this. Pastor Neil, they've just given us advice and wisdom on as we've done these projects here. But I'm excited to see where God's leading us here. And I think this goes into what we've been talking about Christian films, media. Right. And I think this is something that for other churches, you might not be producing feature-length films, but you can do little media
you
snippets.
Can do even little YouTube videos like these roundtables, or if you want to do like a skit. I know the Skit Bros have good content and stuff like that.
Guys.
Skit guys, Skit Bros, Skit dudes.
One or the other. The Skit people.
The Skit people.
No, they're a great channel, but it's just telling in a creative way the story of Christ, the principles of Christ, and getting it out there for people to hear. And this is the way we can reach and go beyond where we are and go outside of where we are and reach to the community there.
Because, and I love this thought kind of example here. So you're preaching here in the church, you're reaching the people who are in the room, and then you live stream that, and then you're reaching people who are in the vicinity of the area. And then if you make videos and keep making videos and make videos, and people share it, and it gets more quality in it once you keep going, and then it reaches a whole nother group of people. So it keeps building and building until...
I mean, you can have a global reach. These movies that we mentioned, they've been translated into multiple languages. I mean, they're all over the world being shown.
Right.
And, I know the Kendrick brothers have story after story, people who came to faith in Christ watching, the movie.
Right.
There and
it's a much bigger reach than you think it is.
Yes. People will watch a film where they might not walk into church and sit on your front row there. So anyway, thanks Clay for being here. I'm glad we got to have this discussion.
This is very enjoyable.
If continue to watch our roundtables here at Amelia Baptist Church. We have plenty of exciting ones coming up. I know Adam has been planning for the rest of kind of the summer where we're going. We have some great episodes coming up. And so tune in, and we'll see you next Friday.
Cut.
All right, you got some editing to do on that.
That'll be fun.
Sorry.
It was fun. I like this setup though.